Wow, what a bummer. With Thanksgiving being over and Christmas as the next holiday on the schedule, we try to get into a peaceful, cozy mood. Images of nestling in around fireplaces with a cup of hot cocoa and perhaps a softly falling snow outside fill our heads, while hopes for a peace that will radiate throughout the darkness of the winter fill our hearts. And so we come on this first Sunday of December, and we hear this. There will be signs in the sun and the moon and the stars, and on the earth distress among the nations, confused by the roaring of the sea and the waves. People will faint from fear and foreboding. It's a great bit of alliteration. And what is coming upon the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Come on, Jesus. That's not the image that we want in our heads right now. You know, the phrase that popped to my mind, and I don't think I've ever uttered this in a sermon except at the 8 o'clock, is, dude, you're harshing my buzz. And actually, it's not Jesus that we have to blame, but the creators of the lectionary, who decided that this apocalyptic message from Jesus said to the disciples just before he was arrested goes on the first Sunday of Advent. It apparently goes well, and it goes well because Jesus goes on to tell us about the fig tree and how as soon as they sprout leaves, you can see for yourselves and know that summer is already near. So also, when you see these things taking place, you know that the kingdom of God is near. So, roughly in church speak, that can be interpreted now as, Christmas is coming! Christmas is coming! Because as we see signs such as our return to purple vestments, the purple around the church, the recognition of the Advent wreath, the rise of Christmas carols that are being played in the marketplaces and throughout our culture, and the various lights and decorations that start to adorn the neighborhood houses, as we see these signs, we are seeing the fig tree sprout its leaves. Though instead of summer, it is declaring that Christmas is already near. This church season gives us a specific time to focus on the coming of Christ, both in the historical way, by celebrating the incarnation when Jesus was born on this earth, as well as in the futuristic way, by celebrating the second coming of Christ and his judgment. When it comes to the futuristic coming of Christ, many people have latched on to those images of darkness and destruction, some of which are well depicted in the book of Revelation. I've heard on more than one occasion when I have visited with patients how people believe that the end times are coming due to the conflicts in the Middle East, or the current political climate throughout the world, or the apparent rise of these natural disasters. Some point to the numerous mass shootings. Some point to technology. And some just hope for the end to come soon because they are very unhappy. Most of the signs of the second coming are dark and negative, such as are depicted in Jesus' statements today involving distress of the nations and people fainting from fear and foreboding. These are meant to be attention-getting devices. Much like when you came into church today and saw purple and the Advent wreath, you knew that we were one step closer to Christmas. But even as much as we might cringe when we hear the lovely strains of I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus in the month of November, we will still rejoice when Christmas Day finally comes. So too, we might cringe as we hear this morning's gospel reading from Luke, as Jesus spells out all these seemingly gloomy signs. But we need to remember that when this time comes, when Christ returns, that is a time of celebration and rejoicing, for the faithful, we really should have little to fear. Because another thing that Jesus says this morning is this: then they will see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. Now, when these things begin to take place, stand up and raise your heads, because your redemption is drawing near. Stand up and raise your heads, for your redemption is drawing near. The end of time is not intended to be death and agony, as is often shown in movie forms. It is intended to be redemption and glory. Advent is the time that we commemorate that expectant waiting. Yes, we can take some time perhaps to bow our heads and look inside ourselves during this season, but we are also reminded that we ought to stand up and raise our heads. We can use this pre-Christmas time to look around us and even to look forward to see what is ahead for us. We do not know when the Christ will come again, as much as people try to predict it. Nobody really knows that. We know, however, that he came once in the form of an infant named Jesus. And we have been told that we can expect the Christ's return someday, in whatever form. And so we wait and we prepare. That's what Advent is all about. And then, when Christ does come again, we will be redeemed, and there will be a feast beyond our imaginations. And that is what Christmas is all about. For this season of Advent, I pray that we might raise up our heads as we patiently and faithfully wait for God's glory to fully remove all the darkness. Hopefully, much like we see the purple in our church or those leaves sprouting from the trees, we will see signs that our redemption draws near. Let us not be afraid, but rather prepare for such a gift that God can give. Let us prepare for the Christ. Amen.